It's been almost 2 years since I blew up my life, and there's not a day that goes by where I don't regret it. I'm not the victim in this story. My husband, our boys, and even my parents, they're the ones carrying the weight of what I did. I betrayed the one man who gave me everything, and now he won't even let me hold his hand. Let me backtrack. I'm 32 now. My husband, Jim, is 39. We've been married for over a decade, 13 solid years filled with laughter, love, and 2 incredible boys who are now 9 and 11. If you'd asked me before all this whether I was happy, I would have said yes without hesitation. I had no complaints, no unmet needs. Jim checked every box. He was my best friend, my rock, and the love of my life. And then I threw it all away. About 19 months ago, Jim found out I was having an affair. The man I cheated with, let's just call him Steve, was our 27-year-old neighbor at the time. Married, father of 3. His wife, Marcia, is a nurse. They just moved into our neighborhood and quickly became part of the community. Compared to the mostly older couples around us, they were close to our age, and everyone welcomed them with open arms. The first time I really noticed Steve was at a neighborhood cookout. It reminded me a lot of when I first met Charles, my first serious boyfriend, back when I was 18. That same magnetic pull, that rush of adrenaline I couldn't quite explain. Charles had that effect on me too. He was my first everything, even though we were never truly compatible. That relationship burned fast and ended just as quickly. Steve brought back that same kind of wild, impulsive energy. At the time, I didn't see the danger in that. A few weeks after the picnic, Jim and I went to the dealership where Steve worked in finance. We were shopping for a new SUV. Steve helped us get a great deal, and during that process there were a few glances, a few lingering moments. Harmless, at least that's what I told myself. Then one day, I brought the car back in for mud flaps. That's when things crossed the line. Steve invited me into his office under the pretense of paperwork. We started talking, and he admitted he had feelings for me. I should have walked away. I should have shut it down. Instead, I confessed that I felt something too. That moment was the beginning of the end. Over the next 5 months, we met in secret. Only 4 times did it go physical, less than most people would imagine. But emotionally, it was betrayal from the start. We weren't in love. I still loved Jim, and Steve claimed he loved Marcia. What we had was purely physical and built on adrenaline and secrecy. It was reckless, selfish, and wrong. The last time we saw each other, we got caught. It was a Thursday morning. Our kids were at school, spouses at work. I was at Steve's place when his mother-in-law, Marcia's mom, unexpectedly walked in. She found us in bed. What followed was chaos. She screamed, clawed at Steve's face, and ripped out chunks of my hair. She punched me so hard my jaw swelled for days. I barely had time to grab my clothes and run out. That was the moment it all came crashing down. I sat at home, numb, staring at the walls. The weight of what I'd done hit me like a freight train. I realized then that my marriage, my family, might be gone for good. I tried to call Jim, left him a message saying we needed to talk. No answer. I texted. Still nothing. That silence was the beginning of the new reality I now live in, one where I'm the one who shattered everything. And no matter how sorry I am, no matter how much I beg, Jim won't even let me near him. I don't blame him. I don't know if anyone reading this has gone through something similar. I just know that carrying this shame is exhausting. And while I'll never stop hoping for forgiveness, I know I may never deserve it. A few days after everything blew up, Marcia and her mom showed up at our front door. They were pounding on the glass, yelling for me to come out. I froze, terrified, humiliated. I didn't answer. Thankfully, my boys were at school. I sat down on the couch and just broke. Cried until I couldn't anymore. I must have dozed off at some point because the next thing I remember is hearing a car pull into the driveway. It was Jim. I jumped up, tried to freshen myself up, wipe my face, fix my hair. When the front door opened, I braced myself. But he didn't come inside. I watched through the window as he walked down the street, towards Steve and Marcia's house. He was there for almost 3 hours. I waited the whole time, pacing, staring at the clock. When he finally returned, I ran to him, reaching out. But he wouldn't let me touch him. His face was blank, distant. I started apologizing, crying, begging him to talk to me. He looked at me and calmly said he didn't accept my apology. Then he told me to leave. I dropped to the floor in shock, pleading. I didn't want to go, but he was unmoved. He picked up the phone and called my mom. Told her what I'd done and asked her to come get me. She showed up, her face full of sadness and shame. She even apologized to Steve before helping me pack a bag. I left that night in tears, asking Jim what he would tell the boys. He just said, "I'll handle it." That night I called him. I didn't expect him to pick up, but he did. Just said hello. No emotion. I told him I was sorry, that I'd never do anything like that again, that I'd spend the rest of my life making it up to him. He stayed quiet. Eventually, I asked if he had anything to say. He told me he knew what he was feeling. I broke down again. He said I should stay with my parents for a couple of weeks. I agreed, but asked when I could see him or the kids. He said not now, but he'd allow a short call every night at 9. The first night, I told him I loved him. He didn't respond, just hung up. The next night, same thing. I poured my heart out. He sat there in silence. Then he dropped a bomb. He said he wanted a divorce. I begged him for another chance. Told him I'd change. Do anything. He said no. That I didn't understand what I'd destroyed. Then he said something that gutted me. He'd give me everything he owned if I'd just disappear. If I'd leave him and the kids alone for good. I lost it. Told him he didn't mean that. But he said he did. After that call, I stayed up all night thinking. And I came up with a plan. I wasn't going to fight the divorce. I was going to offer him a post-nuptial agreement so stacked in his favor he couldn't turn it down. I didn't want money. I didn't want assets. I just wanted one more chance to prove I still loved him. While Jim met with his divorce attorney, I met with lawyers not to prepare for divorce but to build a contract that might save my marriage. I went through 4 attorneys before one finally agreed to draft the kind of post-nup I had in mind, one that would give Jim nearly everything. Before I even got the papers to him, I was served with the divorce filing at my parents' house. But that same day, Jim received the post-nup I had created. That night, we talked. For the first time in weeks, I saw a trace of the man I once knew. He wasn't warm, not exactly, but he wasn't cold either. He seemed surprised. The agreement was all in his favor. If he agreed to stay married for just 30 months, he'd keep nearly all of our shared assets. If I ever cheated again, I'd lose everything, no alimony, no share of property, no support. I also agreed to get a full-time job within 6 months and help with household expenses. On top of that, Jim could date other women if he chose to. I added that because I wanted him to know I still love him enough to give him what I can't take back. To my shock, he accepted it with one addition. He wanted a clause stating we weren't obligated to be intimate. No affection. No physical relationship, no matter how long we stayed married. That one stung. But I agreed. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could still find a way back into his heart. Fast forward. We're 17.5 months into what I've started calling our second marriage. But it doesn't feel like one. We live in the same house, raise our boys together, keep things civil, but there's no love. No warmth. Jim hasn't touched me since the day we signed that agreement. Not a hug. Not a kiss. I try sometimes, just a quick embrace in passing, but he pulls away like I'm made of glass and thorns. It hurts. Every day. But I'm still here. Still fighting. Because I know what I had and I know what I lost. And if there's even a sliver of a chance to get it back, I'll take it no matter how long it takes. After everything that happened, Jim put strict boundaries in place. He doesn't like physical affection, so I stopped trying, even though I still crave the connection. Still, he insists I take monthly at-home STD tests. That part stings every time, but I comply without complaint. It's part of the price I pay for the damage I caused. Since the affair, Jim won't be seen in public with me. Not at family gatherings, not even at our boys' sports games. We split who takes them. When it's my turn, he still shows up, but he stands on the opposite side of the field with the other dads. He won't acknowledge me. It's like I'm invisible. The only time we do anything together is when we travel, which we do fairly often. He books us adjoining hotel rooms with 2 queen beds. The boys get one room, we get the other, but always in separate beds. Ironically, those trips are when we're closest. I've come so close to breaking through to him on a few of those nights. I told him that. I even suggested we move out of the neighborhood for a fresh start. But Jim said he'd only consider moving if a job promotion forced it. Otherwise, he plans to stay until the boys graduate. The boys don't want to leave either. All their friends live nearby. So does Jim's entire support system. But me? I lost everyone. The neighbors, especially the women I was once close to, cut me off completely. They blamed me for breaking up Steve and Marcia's marriage. And they were right. Marcia stayed in the neighborhood with her kids. Steve moved out about 8 months after D-Day. Now my own home feels like a cage. I barely go outside unless it's to work in the backyard garden I built with the boys. That space is my sanctuary. When they're not at school or with friends, often including Marcia's kids, they help me plant, water, and harvest. It's brought us closer in ways I never expected. Jim keeps to his own routines. Work, gym, bourbon nights with the neighborhood guys. Sometimes they hang out at our house. He'll grill on weekends but only eats what he makes. He won't touch anything I cook. On weekdays, it's just me and the boys at dinner. We eat early, around 4, and those moments have become special. We prep together, set the table, clean up. It's taught them independence and taught me to cherish even the small wins. In some ways, my life is better than ever. In others, it's miserable. I'm stuck between gratitude and grief. I love Jim. I always will. And I'll never stop carrying the weight of what I did. But I can't lie to myself anymore. He doesn't see me as a wife. I'm just the mother of his kids. A roommate with a painful history. So I made a hard choice. Last month, I moved out. I found a furnished apartment close by and decided to give us space. Being away from that house and that neighborhood has been a relief, even though I miss my boys and my garden more than I expected. When I told Jim about my plan, I saw something flicker in him. He asked questions. He looked emotional. That small moment gave me hope. Now, I pick up the boys after school a few days a week. They stay with me, we cook dinner, talk, laugh. Jim and I talk more, too. I admit I call him sometimes over silly stuff just to hear his voice. But he doesn't seem to mind. We've had a few long conversations lately. He's not warm, but he's open. And I see glimpses of the man I married. Then came the final twist. After 2 years in what I call our second marriage, Jim told me he wants a divorce. He was calm when he said it. Said he still loves me, but that the legal marriage keeps him stuck in a place of resentment. That the betrayal still lives in his head because we're still technically together. But maybe after the divorce we could start again. As lovers. As friends. Without the weight of a title. He even suggested we celebrate the divorce. Maybe spend one last night together. I know how that sounds. But I said yes. Jim made it clear, no remarriage. No contracts. If we rebuild, it'll be from choice, not obligation. And strangely, I agree. I just want him in my life. However I can have him. As for the divorce, I'm not fighting. Even though the postnup gave me certain rights, I told him he could keep 3/4 of everything. I'm not seeking alimony. No child support. I know some people would call that foolish, but I know this man. He would have given me everything if I hadn't betrayed him. This is what I can do to show I still love him. Maybe this really is the end. Or maybe it's just the start of something different, less defined, but more honest. Either way, I'll keep hoping for the day I earn back his trust. Until then, I'm just trying to live in a way that proves I deserve it. I want to start by saying something I've learned the hard way. If you're tempted to cheat or chase excitement outside your marriage, stop. Think. What you're risking isn't worth the brief thrill. I say this from experience, not just observation. I'm in a stable financial place. I could easily live 8 more years without working. But none of that makes up for the damage done by a mistake. If you find yourself struggling with temptation, seek help, talk to a therapist, a counselor, anyone. Because once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. That said, let me shift to the story I came here to share. I'm 32. Married to my wife, Kat. We've been together for 4 years now, 2 dating, 2 married. I love her deeply. She's smart, driven, and charismatic. But recently, things have changed. It started 2 months ago. Out of nowhere, Kat brought up the idea of opening our marriage. Said it might bring excitement, keep things fresh. I was blindsided. This was not something we'd ever discussed or hinted at before. I want to be clear, I'm not a controlling guy. I've never told Kat what she can or can't do. But the idea of inviting others into our marriage? It didn't sit right with me. I told her that gently, trying to be honest without shutting her down. I said I wasn't against trying new things, but I needed them to stay between us. No third parties. She didn't say much after that, but I could tell she was disappointed. I could feel the air shift between us. She was colder, distant. I started questioning everything. Was I enough? Was I boring in bed? Was I holding her back? I wanted to talk to her, really talk. But her schedule made it impossible. Kat works as a consultant and travels across time zones. Meanwhile, my job is more local. I blamed myself for saying no so quickly, for not digging deeper into why she brought it up in the first place. 2 weeks later, I came home early from work. I cooked her favorite meal, hoping to reconnect. She was happy, appreciative. We hugged. It felt good for a moment. So I asked her again, gently, about her idea for an open marriage. That's when everything exploded. She snapped. Accused me of playing mind games. Said I was trying to trap her into admitting something. All I wanted was to understand her better, but she saw it as manipulation. I was shocked. Hurt. Eventually, she opened up. She admitted that her interns, young, fresh out of college, were always talking about wild hookups and parties. Their stories made her feel like she was missing out. That's where the idea came from. FOMO. She wanted excitement. I listened. I got it. I used to be like that too. In my 20s, I partied, lived fast, burned out. But after all that, I found peace with Kat. She was the calm in my storm, the person I wanted to build a future with. I told her that. I said, if this lifestyle is something you truly want, we need to talk seriously about our marriage. But she quickly backed off and said no, she was just curious. For a while, things felt okay again. Then her mood shifted. She started mocking me, calling me old-fashioned, saying I wasn't evolving. She blamed her coldness on work stress, but it didn't feel right. Her late nights became more frequent. What used to be a few times a month turned into every other day. Sometimes she'd get home at dawn. I asked questions. She gave me the same answer, I'm pushing for a promotion. I believed her at first. I wanted to believe her. But in my gut, I felt something was off. Then came last night. I got home early again and decided to surprise her. I made her favorite lasagna, lit a candle, waited. I texted her to let her know. She replied, saying she'd be home late after midnight. That crushed me a bit. Still, I waited. Around 9 p.m. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I'd drive down to her office and pick her up. Just to see her. Just to be close. What happened next changed everything. I'd never shown up at her work unannounced before, not unless we had evening plans. But that night I just wanted to surprise her. Maybe reconnect. Maybe prove to myself that I was overthinking things. It was nearly 12:30 a.m. when I parked outside her office. Her building's easy to recognize, a standalone, glass-fronted structure with a lit lobby. I waited about 30, maybe 45 minutes. But there was no sign of Kat. Concerned, I finally went inside and spoke to the receptionist. The office was still buzzing with night shift employees. I asked about Kat. The receptionist hesitated, then told me she had already left earlier that day. My heart sank. I left without saying another word. Drove home in silence, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the receptionist was mistaken. Maybe Kat went out on a last-minute errand. Cheating wasn't even the first thing on my mind, I was just worried about her safety. But when I got home, the house was dark. Empty. No sign of her. I stayed up for hours, but eventually, exhaustion took over and I crashed on the couch. When I woke up, sunlight was pouring in through the blinds. I ran upstairs and there she was. Kat. Sound asleep in our bed like nothing had happened. I tucked her in gently and went back to the couch. That morning, as she was getting ready for work, I asked when she'd come in. She said around 3 a.m. claimed she had a long Zoom call with a client overseas. I pressed, asking when she left her office. She casually said 2:30 a.m., but I was there at 12:30, and the receptionist said she had left long before that. I didn't argue. I was still trying to process it. Then, around lunchtime, she called. Told me the receptionist had mentioned my visit. She acted a bit thrown off and explained she'd actually left earlier in the day for an in-person meeting with her client's U.S. office. That's why she wasn't at the office when I came by, she said. Something felt off. The story kept shifting. Still, I let it go. I told myself maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was clinging too tightly to something that just needed space. For the next 2 weeks, we barely spoke. She kept working late. I kept lying to myself. Then came the breaking point. 2 nights ago, Kat was lying on our bed talking to her mom. Her mother's been battling kidney issues and the recent test results weren't good. While they talked, I picked up Kat's phone just to check on her mom's condition. Out of concern. That was all. But while I held her phone, something in me hesitated. I saw a string of unread messages. Notifications. Chat bubbles with names I didn't recognize. I quietly walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and opened her messages. That's when everything unraveled. She was cheating. The chats were explicit, plans to meet for fun, inside jokes, flirty banter. I opened her social media DMs and saw she was involved with multiple colleagues. Younger guys. Probably those same interns she once mentioned admiring. My stomach dropped. I didn't have long. She realized I had her phone and began banging on the door, yelling for it back. I didn't respond. I opened her gallery instead. There it was. Proof. Picture after picture of her, my wife, posing in ways I can't even bring myself to describe. With them. With different guys. With those exciting coworkers she couldn't stop talking about. I emailed myself everything I could, then deleted the traces. I felt physically sick. Eventually, I handed the phone back to her without a word. Then locked the door again because I couldn't bear to look at her. Not in that moment. At first, I wanted to confront her right then and there, scream, demand answers, tear into the lies. But something inside me held back. I let the fury burn out slowly. Then I looked at the chat messages again, the time, the hotel name, everything. So I grabbed my keys and drove there. She was supposed to meet someone at 5 p.m. I got there at 3, posted up at a dark table in the hotel lobby bar. I didn't want to cause a scene. I just wanted to watch. I don't even know why, maybe part of me still hoped this wasn't real. But by 5 p.m. she was a no-show. I kept drinking. Shot after shot. By 6, still nothing. My thoughts ran wild. Maybe she got spooked. Maybe she changed locations. Maybe she knew I'd be there. But by 7 she showed up. Kat. Dressed up, carefree, walking in like this was just another day. I'd been drinking for hours, and when I saw her, my vision went blurry. My heart didn't even break, it just went numb. I stood up, stumbled to the reception where she was checking in, tapped her shoulder, and said just loud enough to hear, "Good luck with your fun ride." She tried to grab my arm, said something I can't even remember, my brain had shut off. I shook her off and stormed out. Got in a cab, rode straight to my buddy Lee's place, and passed out on his doorstep. I woke up on his couch late the next afternoon, Sunday. He made me lunch and lemonade while I poured everything out. Every detail. Lee listened, then calmly told me to take care of the basics, lock down our finances, change every password, and get tested. The betrayal was soul deep, but I followed his advice anyway. My phone was dead. I plugged it in, and it lit up like a Christmas tree, over 100 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, endless messages. All from Kat. I didn't open a single one. I blocked her on everything. By Monday, I called in sick to work. I couldn't even think straight. The drinking got worse. I wanted to disappear. Lee stepped in and started calling lawyers. I gave him the photos I'd emailed myself, the ones from her phone, and started putting together the legal case. That whole time, Kat wouldn't stop. She called Lee, messaged mutual friends, pleaded for a second chance. She claimed the affairs were meaningless. Just a way to feel desired. She called it exploring her desires. I don't know if that's a generational thing or just an excuse, but to me, it was a betrayal. Plain and simple. Lee went to our house to grab my stuff. We'd hoped she'd be at work, but she was home. Broke down crying when she saw him. Said she'd quit her job. Told him everything started when the interns began flirting with her, young guys feeding her ego, making her feel attractive again. It's been almost 2 years since I blew up my life, and there's not a day that goes by where I don't regret it. I'm not the victim in this story. My husband, our boys, and even my parents, they're the ones carrying the weight of what I did. I betrayed the one man who gave me everything, and now he won't even let me hold his hand. Let me backtrack. I'm 32 now. My husband, Jim, is 39. We've been married for over a decade, 13 solid years filled with laughter, love, and 2 incredible boys who are now 9 and 11. If you'd asked me before all this whether I was happy, I would have said yes without hesitation. I had no complaints, no unmet needs. Jim checked every box. He was my best friend, my rock, and the love of my life. And then I threw it all away. About 19 months ago, Jim found out I was having an affair. The man I cheated with, let's just call him Steve, was our 27-year-old neighbor at the time. Married, father of 3. His wife, Marcia, is a nurse. They just moved into our neighborhood and quickly became part of the community. Compared to the mostly older couples around us, they were close to our age, and everyone welcomed them with open arms. The first time I really noticed Steve was at a neighborhood cookout. It reminded me a lot of when I first met Charles, my first serious boyfriend, back when I was 18. That same magnetic pull, that rush of adrenaline I couldn't quite explain. Charles had that effect on me too. He was my first everything, even though we were never truly compatible. That relationship burned fast and ended just as quickly. Steve brought back that same kind of wild, impulsive energy. At the time, I didn't see the danger in that. A few weeks after the picnic, Jim and I went to the dealership where Steve worked in finance. We were shopping for a new SUV. Steve helped us get a great deal, and during that process there were a few glances, a few lingering moments. Harmless, at least that's what I told myself. Then one day, I brought the car back in for mud flaps. That's when things crossed the line. Steve invited me into his office under the pretense of paperwork. We started talking, and he admitted he had feelings for me. I should have walked away. I should have shut it down. Instead, I confessed that I felt something too. That moment was the beginning of the end. Over the next 5 months, we met in secret. Only 4 times did it go physical, less than most people would imagine. But emotionally, it was betrayal from the start. We weren't in love. I still loved Jim, and Steve claimed he loved Marcia. What we had was purely physical and built on adrenaline and secrecy. It was reckless, selfish, and wrong. The last time we saw each other, we got caught. It was a Thursday morning. Our kids were at school, spouses at work. I was at Steve's place when his mother-in-law, Marcia's mom, unexpectedly walked in. She found us in bed. What followed was chaos. She screamed, clawed at Steve's face, and ripped out chunks of my hair.